Live to Fight Design is a fighter and gym banner company in Iowa that is owned by Sean Clemens. If you are a fighter or a gym owner that is interested in ordering a banner, you can reach Sean Clemens on Instagram at Live to Fight Design. If you use Todd's promo code Todd Atkins, you will get $20 off of your order.
Hi, I'm Lauren Garcia, and you're watching the MMA Conspiracy Hour with Todd Atkins and Miguel Itorit. Be sure to check out my upcoming fight for Epic Fighting here in San Diego on February 23rd. Tickets are still available, and if you want to watch pay-per-view, all that information can be found on Epic Fighting's page. And if you haven't yet, be sure to follow me at IronButterfly_MMA.
All right, so it's Todd Atkins and Miguel Iterati, and we're back with another MMA Conspiracy Hour, and kind of cover a topic that, I kind of originally broke, or we kind of originally broke, which was that, back when the McGregor-Chandler fight, we were kind of the first people to say that it wasn't going to happen at the end of the year when the Ultimate Fighter originally happened in 2023. And now, again, it's not happening when people were anticipating it was going to happen, in the middle of this year, maybe in June at an International Fight Week. It looks like it's going to get delayed again. Dana White's saying that now they're looking at the fall, and a lot of people are now coming around to say that they don't think McGregor's ever going to fight again, which was kind of the stance we were at, back in 2023. And, I wanted to give Miguel kind of an opportunity. And before we start, I want to thank our sponsors, Live to Fight Design and BetStamp. And Miguel, I kind of want to give you a chance to kind of give your opening thoughts on this latest development of another delay in this fight.
Todd, we prepped a little bit for this, and we had a good conversation about what we were going to talk about, and now I'm going to hit you out of left field. And we had talked about Conor McGregor's alcohol abuse and the potential for him to be an addict of some type or an alcoholic or whatever word you want to use. And that looks more and more to be the case. And one of the things that happens in cases like that, especially with a personality like his, is that people make excuses for you. And also that he uses excuses that are available to him to make, to keep doing his thing and, make things look good like it's not his fault. Look back at it. The fact of the matter is, as they were filming the TV show, he failed to sign up to USADA for a deadline. At that second, we knew that fight wasn't going to happen. Yet we watched the TV show, or the masses watched the TV show, still thinking there was going to be some way because it's Conor that they were going to pull it off. And Conor, bombastically did whatever he did. Went to Vegas to film. Like, it's hard to have fun in Vegas, I bet, for a guy with money, right? So he did what he wanted to do, always knowing that he was never going to fight. And USADA, all they really did was stand their ground and say, look, you gave us this authority. We have this authority. He can't fight. He's breaking the rules. And somehow it turns into USADA's the bad guys. Even Dana and those guys, it wasn't the true catalyst. Maybe they were already looking to make a move away. It wasn't the true catalyst, but certainly Conor's influence, or that Conor incident was an influence on the UFC moving away from USADA. And Conor used that to blame USADA like they were the bad guys. So then naturally everybody thinks he's going to fight, in February. Now, as soon as the year's up, and they're in a new system, we're going to get to see Conor again. And then there was all the rumors about, UFC 300 being headlined by him. And Conor himself said, despite the fact that he'd been clamoring for a fight, that he says he's ready every time he's in front of a camera and that he wants to fight, that he's a fighter first and his whole spiel. He's looking huger and huger in suits and looking more, face worn and puffy and bloated. Despite the fact that UFC 300 would have been a sort of natural fit for him, he says, no, it's going to be fight week in July. Pushes it off again. Dana never even confirmed that. That means they didn't have a contract. They didn't have anything. Maybe it was just Conor talking. And the only thing that was missing was Dana coming out and saying, no, that's just talk at that point because, Conor gets that special treatment. He gets away with stuff. So now Dana in the news here reveals to somebody actually there may have been, back conversations. Maybe he tried to sign the fight and it didn't happen. Maybe Conor has some other, business or something. Who knows what is the reason that the fight's not happening? I think it's alcoholism on Conor's part. That there's a constant putting off of things. There's a constant of excuses. There's a constant of, people enabling him because of personality. Like I said, we talked about it. You know, he's got a coach, and his coach is it Kavanaugh? I don't want to get his name wrong. He's an Irish, basically a pretty legendary guy as far as like he's put together his resume and stuff like that. Trained guys, gotten guys ready for fights, shown his chops, but he's just a trainer. He's not Customato to Mike Tyson, a guy who mentors him. And Kavanaugh backs off when Conor's doing the Conor act. Conor doesn't listen to anybody but Conor. And that's grown exponentially as, his fortune's grown and his fame has grown and stuff like that. All of that's an enabling thing. And once again, you fall back to, he owns bars in Ireland. And there are, aside from the stories of him, punching people in the face drunk in Italy, and, he's traveling his boat. We talked about maybe he should have done an episode of the TV show where he was on his boat and calling in the training session with his team and stuff like that. But again,
that would have been good.
Yeah, he's doing a total lifestyle thing. And then there's the thing about, an Irish pub owner, a legendary image of image in history. An Irish pub is, not like an American bar. An Irish pub has got history and this, that, and he loves the idea of hosting, of being at the bar and, hey, I'll get you a drink, or this one's on me, this one's on the house, and stuff like that. That atmosphere is very appealing to Conor. He's shown that in everything. And I present to you that may even have more appeal to him than being in the ring making his faces. And that's what he can't escape. I'm going to stop tomorrow. I got to stop Wednesday so I can start my training. And then on Wednesday, he doesn't show up. Who's going to say something? Kavanaugh? Kavanaugh isn't going to do a press conference and go, look, I'm washing my hands of this guy because he's an alcoholic. Go back to the old days, the real old days. Legendary John L. Sullivan, the last bare knuckle boxing world champion, who actually fought a glove fight as well. But he was the last bare knuckle world champion when he was making a title defense. And I don't want to garble his name, but he became boxing commissioner, and he was also a wrestler in the 1870s. But he was the boxing commissioner. He was also the boxing commissioner who blocked Jack Dempsey from fighting some of the black fighters. So he's kind of a controversial figure in history. But his home in upstate New York is now the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame and Museum. So, and it's in that home that he took John L. Sullivan and trained him for John L. Sullivan's last fight. And when John L. Sullivan would escape at night to go to the bar, his trainer would go to the bar and take him out of there and drag him back to the home. And McGregor, Customato had that same type of influence on Tyson. Tyson wasn't that type of that type of abuser at that age and stuff like that. But nobody influences Conor that way. Customato with Muhammad Ali, even Muhammad Ali had people, especially early in his career, that could influence him. And Conor doesn't have an influence like that can tell him, look, you're making a mistake. So he just charges on and keeps doing what it is he does. And here is the worst mistake that he's making. If he doesn't fight until the second half of this year, he will be 36 years old. He's legitimately burning off the best last years that he has of his career. If his body's already not past its prime, you know, I mean, the fact is the brittle bone he showed in his last fight where he broke his leg. That might be your first bad sign, you know, a couple of years ago when he broke his leg or whatever. That might have been a sign that his body's already starting to get shot. You know, roiding up to 190 or 200 pounds, um, all the drinking and partying he does, the lifestyle he lives, that's not exactly how, you know, a guy like Derek Jeter conducted himself so he could play in his prime till 40, you know? So, yeah, I think he's making a lot of mistakes. And I think it starts with the fact that no one, not, you know, here's how incredible Conor's personality is not even Dana. Like Dana, I don't give a shit. I told a big money sponsor to go fuck themselves because they wanted me to take down a picture of Donald Trump. Dana's never given a crap. But Dana, for Conor's like, yeah, you know, Conor does what he wants to do. Even not even Dana can influence Conor. And that's very telling to me, you know, and that's the problem with Conor McGregor. You don't have anybody who can control him. His wife, hey, you know, she sits at home, takes care of the kids, lives a nice life. But, you know, I remember reading a story of a drug dealer in the Upper East Side of New York in Harlem that, you know, used to have bags of pot and cocaine and stuff in the house. And he lived with his mother. And his mother would, if you walked in, his mother would be sitting there washing the dishes, just completely like not paying attention to what's going on. And I think that's probably how Conor's family has to be. They have to a certain extent, be there for him. But then when he goes off to do his own thing, they have to back off and let him do it. There's nobody who tells him what to do. That's the way his personality has evolved. And that's the problem here. Because anybody, any advisor, anybody would say, Conor, what are we doing here? If you're healthy, let's get back, you know, and you say you're a fighter first. And at the end of the day, you've got money, but, you know, still you're looking at probably $30 million in your next payday. It's like, it's not money any normal person would want to leave on the table. But Conor's leaving it on the table. He'll get it. Just like Tyson, when Tyson came back, he actually made more money for his comeback fights where he was shot because of the spectacle. So that would be the sad part about Conor coming back and making big money again, you know, like that, is that he's not going to deserve it. And he may run the risk of actually embarrassing himself, you know, more than he does already by, you know, punching people in hotels in Italy and all that sort of stuff. But again, so that's the problem with the whole Conor thing. And then, you know, on the other side, Chandler is ill-managed and ill-advised, and you know, if he's following the beat of his own drum, he's also making a tragic mistake. Chandler is even older than Conor. These are not the times to sit for 2 years when you're healthy. You know, Chandler's 1-3 in his last UFC fights. The more time he spends not fighting, let's say the Conor fight doesn't happen, and they say, okay, well, you got to come back and fight X against the guy who's hungry, against the guy who's been fighting, against the guy who's been active. He runs the risk of, you know, going 1-4 here at the end of his career. You know, and maybe they do Tony Ferguson, they bring him back 1-5, 1-6. That's going to be his UFC run. And he didn't picture it going that way. He should have demanded, especially as soon as it appeared that Conor, you know, with USADA wasn't going to get along, and then even they knew USADA was going to end. After the TV show, he should have been looking for a fight. If he doesn't have the confidence to say, I can beat anybody, then he's not the Michael Chandler that signed on to the UFC. So he should have said, I don't care. Like Chimaev wouldn't have said, well, I don't want to fight. I'll hold out. I'll wait. Guy, like, you have to have that mindset of, I'll beat anybody because I got to get out of this schneid I'm in with a 1-3 record. You know, if he had gone 2-0 in 2023, has a 2-fight winning streak now, that opens up a lot. Here's the other part: is at 155, you've got Makhachev there, and you know, Oliveira's not a wrestler. You know, Gaethje's, you know, more of a striker. Poirier really more of a striker. You know, the guys at the elite level, the guys that Makhachev has been taking on. Chandler, I'm not saying, I don't know who's a better wrestler, Chandler or Makhachev. Probably Makhachev, right? That's probably what most people would say. And that, I'm okay with that. I'm not arguing that. But once you start taking away some of the distance between those advantages, Chandler's the best wrestler in that division besides Makhachev, probably. And he would be a compelling fight for Makhachev. Now, having gone 2-0 in his last few fights, a Bellator champion, I've cleaned my record up. My next fight's going to be Conor. Okay, now if Conor doesn't show up, I want the title fight. He has no basis to say that. And the fact that scares me is he's not saying that. He's just sitting there waiting for Conor and a payday. He's going to be 38 when he fights him, if he fights him at the end of the year. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me the way this stuff gets managed. And again, Dana, this is part of it. Dana doesn't seem to give a shit. All he cares about is getting Conor back in the ring so he can cash that check. And he doesn't know how he's going to do it. That's what this shows me.
I'd say Sarukian's as good or better than Chandler wrestling. But, you know, that's another discussion.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Sarukian's up and coming, and a guy who's building still his resume. Chandler is a Bellator champion stuff. Chandler might have still a little bit of a clearer path to a title fight or more justification, or could at least make more noise if he was winning. And again, he's an interesting fight for Makhachev to me. And the thing is I also think Chandler McGregor is piss poor matchmaking. Piss poor.
Oh, they probably think that Chandler will fight the way he usually does, which is he kind of abandons his best avenue for victory and kind of fights to please the fans.
Right. And the problem with McGregor is that McGregor, at the top of his game, look what he did to Aldo. Look what he did to Alvarez. It was all precision. So if that's the one that shows up and Chandler comes in with his rudimentary boxing, thinking he's going to slug it out with him, he may only get one or two punches and he'll be out. And McGregor could have an easy payday. And he's shorter and stockier, whereas McGregor, again, Eddie Alvarez is a perfect example of how that fight could look.
Let me ask you this, because this isn't something people are already talking about. Could it be a confidence thing with both these guys? McGregor delaying because he hasn't looked good in his last two fights. He can't afford to lose another one. And Chandler not taking any other fights because, like you said, he's 1-3 in his last 4.
Yeah, I think
so. Maybe he's saying, "I'll hold out for this because I feel like I can get this guy, you know, and this would be a big payday for me." Is it a bit of a confidence thing on both of their parts?
In different ways. Like, I think Chandler could very well be looking at that basic 1-3. If I go 1-4, I might as well on that fourth loss grab as much money as I can. That's basics. I think McGregor, like I said, the personality part of him is very hard to get a read on, but I could see him just whitewashing it. Oh, I'll kill my next guy. That was a fluke. You know, I'm Conor McGregor, and I don't care. But again, if substance abuse and lifestyle is a little bit of a problem, you know, let's say Monday morning, 6 o'clock, you got to be in the gym. Marvin Hagler said it. Man, it's hard to get up and do your running at 5 in the morning when you're sleeping on silk sheets. And that's the thing. It's a Monday, 6 a.m. I'm starting my training camp. And then on Saturday, he gets a phone call. Hey, you know, you're invited to go see, I don't know, Taylor Swift, since she's in the news. You're invited to go see Taylor Swift in Dubai on Monday. What do you think Conor's going to do? He's going to be in Dubai. He's not going to be at his training camp. He'll start his training camp next week. That's the mentality that I see in Conor. Yeah. Putting it off, because he's having fun. He's having a great life. So stopping it and doing a real training camp.
Plus, I think he really wants the Diaz fight. You know, that's the fight I think he wants. And he's seen Diaz. He doesn't look good in his fights. Didn't look good in the Paul fight. Didn't look good against Tony Ferguson. He's probably thinking, oh, if I fight Diaz, I can beat him, no problem. You know?
Yeah, but I don't think he's a guy who's going to look at Chandler and think, yeah, maybe I think because if he looks back at it, he probably made more money with the Diaz fight than he did with Poirier.
No, I'm
And
saying I think Conor doesn't want to fight Chandler. I think he wants a Diaz fight.
no, I understand
Yeah.
that, but
If he's
I'm
going to
telling
fight ever again, it's going to be Diaz or nobody.
no, I'm telling you that the reason for that would be money, not that he fears Chandler in any way.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think he fears Chandler in any way. I think that he may be wrong. He may be having that bluster, but I think that Conor does buy into that he's the best in the world, that he can beat anybody. You can put anyone in front of him and he'll be Conor McGregor again. So Chandler doesn't worry him like I might lose to Chandler. Like if you told him Poirier would do a rematch again, I think he might, if the money was right and everything like that, I think he'd do that too. I don't think
Yeah.
he cares in that respect. I think his arrogance is enough that he thinks still that he can beat anybody. I think if it comes down to it, there is now a business aspect to him. I think Diaz would still be possibly the most monetizable fight for him. So if he's looking at I'm getting 30 million for Chandler and I'll get 40 million for Diaz, yeah, then he'll opt for Diaz. But I don't think he decides that. I think he thinks he could beat all those guys. Part
Now
of the
let's
ego
talk a
going
little
on
bit
there.
more. This is something we talked a little bit offline, but I wanted to get more into it. We're talking about Chandler sitting. I wanted you to get a little bit more into the failures of if this fight doesn't happen, kind of like the failures of, the manager, him, even the promotion of the UFC, you know, what this would look like.
Yeah, this is a guy who is one of the better guys that he's shown. Even though he's 1-3 in his last few fights, his fights have been exciting. He's a guy who came over from another organization and sort of fit in at the top shelf. So, um, you could market all that stuff in a positive way, in a way that's good for the sport. Here's a guy that came in and proved himself and, did everything like that. And I would have been looking to get like this. The fact is like I said earlier, when he didn't fight McGregor after the TV show, that the promotion didn't offer him another fight, that his manager didn't push for another fight, that Chandler didn't say, "Hey, who am I fighting next?" That's strike 1, 2, and 3 right there. You struck out completely. That's the wrong way to have handled it, especially. There's no right way to handle it for athletes that have 10 to 15 year shelf lives. You can't, people have 40 years to earn in normal careers, not at that level and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, your money stops coming in. So at no point should you be, if you're healthy, should you be saying, I'll sit and wait. I'll wait. You could do that for a small amount of time. But every time he didn't fight, like I said, if he should have fought twice in 2023, and then he'd be in a whole different category here in terms of possible title contention or even a heavy doorman for, people coming up, heading towards the title picture. Hey, you got to get through Michael Chandler first. He proved himself to be that type of guy that you can put him near the top level. He'd be earning paychecks, staying healthy. I'm sorry, avoiding ring rust. Staying active, and that's not what he's doing. And the promotion again, this money churning machine is probably paying him off for the sitting. And that's not the right way they should have approached it. They should look at him as an asset that they want in the ring, not as a foil to the only asset that seems to blind them, which is McGregor, or like on this level. You think the attention going to McGregor and Chandler and these guys doesn't bother Makachev? An undefeated champion guy that is sitting there, feeling disrespected. He's the top of the totem pole. Why are those guys going to make so much more? Yeah, here's the part of it is those guys are grounded and humble enough, and I'm talking about the Chechens or the Dagestanis or whatever you want to call them. and Dana said it. Dana said it in public. Khabib never asked him for more money or asked him what he's making. He just says yes to fights. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to make a shitload. I'll take what you give me. It's a ton of money for me. That humility hurts them a little bit because they're okay with that. They should be saying, why am I not making the money McGregor is? You know what I would do to McGregor? Makachev would do to McGregor what Khabib did to McGregor. You know, Khabib, yeah, they offered him a ton of money to come back and stuff. Still, he didn't want to, and it didn't play into his rhetoric or anything like that. But any other champion would have also mentioned, yeah, that's a good offer, but it's not what McGregor's making. And that's the ridiculous aspect of this. So yeah, it's just a bad situation. It's just everybody's blinded by money. They're already operating at levels where they're making good money. And the aspect of sport is completely forgotten. Where, the aspect of wine, Makachev and the Dagestanis bring that uniqueness again. It shouldn't be unique in a sport to want to be the best. They're the guys that keep that flag going. Everybody else just wants to be the highest paid. From O'Malley to, Aljamain, they all seem to bring, up through the weight classes, they all seem to bring that I want to be the highest paid as if that was the most important, more important than being the best. And you know what? This is where the UFC is screwy because there shouldn't be a difference. If you're the best, you should be the highest paid. It's kind of natural. But they've skewed this because if you've got the most Instagram followers and you attract the most eyes and you make the company the most money, now you're the highest paid. And that's kind of not the way it should be.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask you is trying to slip my mind for a second. Oh, yeah. Now that they're a publicly traded company, I would think there's some stuff going on behind the scenes where, like the heads, people that are above Dana, like Ari Emanuel, they must be asking, like, why can't we get Conor McGregor in the ring or in the cage? What's going on with this?
They probably know more than we do, and if they're looking at it and they're savvy, they may have come to the same conclusion that I have, that you're dealing with a guy who's an X factor. You're dealing with a guy who you can't really influence. He's, the term is universal now, but you've got that term of FU money. He doesn't need the money. So you can't really lure him with money unless you're actually going to say, we'll give you, you have $500 million. We'll give you another $250 million for your next fight because then they can't monetize. So, whatever is the max amount that you can offer him might not interest him that much. And that's the only way those guys know how to do it, is to throw money at it. And that's a shame of it because, like I said, somebody who can get in the Conor's head and remind him that as an athlete, he hasn't competed in a while. And that even though he's a bar owner and a whiskey salesman and a yacht, sailor or whatever you want to call it, he's a fighter first, right? Because it doesn't look like that anymore. It hasn't looked like that for years. And if somebody were able to reach him, no one feels even confident enough to have that conversation. And with Conor kind of being an X factor, like he punches people in the face, old men, reporters, people in hotels in Italy and stuff like that. Legitimately, from Dana to Kavanaugh to whoever should be influencing him, might be just as simple as that, afraid that he's going to punch him in the face.
But I mean, TKO's having a tough time of it. They have Vincent Mann problem, and now they got, the two biggest stars in the UFC, which is Conor and John Jones, I would say. They can't get either of these guys to compete.
Yeah. Look, I think in our conversations with John Maisie, we talked about, that as a
Bob.
monopoly,
Yeah, Bob Mason.
Bob Maisie, I'm sorry, as a monopoly, they showed the ability to continue to grow the amount of money coming in, despite the fact that at some point that should be tapering off. And if there was competition, some of the money should be going to the competition, but no one else grew that way. And they continued to grow, 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 grow. They have been doing it for so long that they may be heading towards a downturn, a point where the sport becomes smaller, or at least not as monetizable. People, there are a good many people from our generation that saw the sport in the early days that have seen so many fights that they're kind of bored by the product now.
Right.
What if that were to start happening on a more mass level where people are like, yeah, I've been watching it for 10 years and, it's a little boring now.
Well, I think it has happened on a mass level. Most of the people I know that aren't like you and me, they don't watch it all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that's the problem with, O'Malley and the, 400, 500,000 pay-per-views. It's like, that's actually not really that many people.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways that you can see the fights that, people might say, oh yeah, I didn't see that fight. I'll go see it on YouTube or, whatever. See how and they'll watch a highlight or they'll watch something where, this corner of the screen is blocked out and you just see this portion of the fight. That's good enough, especially if two guys are standing in front of each other, 1-2 and a leg kick, 1-2 and a leg kick, and that's the whole fight. It's become a little bit of a watered down product in terms of, we've seen a lot. I'm not saying we've seen it all, everything that could ever happen in a fight and stuff like that, but the ability to transcend just doesn't seem to be there anymore. Not as often. And we saw it recently with Strickland and Adesanya. Strickland kind of captured a moment, and a guy had that moment. Jan and Aljamain had a moment. But used to get a lot of that more often, and now it's not as much. And now it is very cookie cutter. Everybody's wearing Venom. Everybody looks the same. Bald guy with tattoos. It's probably time for a downturn in the sport, which is why you see the UFC, dabbling in other things like recently with the BKFC and, things like that. It's like, yeah, they're actually looking to continue the upward trajectory of the money coming in. And they're going to find it harder and harder to do.
Line shopping for the best odds matters. And that is why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and they are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. Using their link, signupexpert.com-TAS, you can get access to all the sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique features. Most importantly, this page automatically connects you to the top promotions at each book, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced.
Why do you think that they had that picture with Dana and Feldman? What do you think's going on there?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can tell you that, BKFC has done a good job in keeping their product out there and afloat and moving. They excite a certain number of people in the, sports world and stuff like that. I present to you, it's not a totally mainstream product. At the end of the day, you get fighters that start to, look worn out, with cuts and things like that. That's kind of the shock value and stuff. But, people covered in blood, the UFC learned that early. People covered in blood only sells to a certain extent. That's not what people want to take their kids to, kind of thing, or things like that. So but I think they did a good job in establishing their niche and actually growing. They say they're the fastest growing sport out there. They've been around for a few years now, and I can walk down any street in Costa Rica and see a UFC hat or a tap out shirt or certain of the crossover. I've yet to see a BKFC. I've yet to meet anyone in Latin America with the BKFC application, on their phone kind of thing. So they are, fast growing in some markets, but in others they're pretty stalled. So I don't think what I think could be happening is my idea of WWE, UFC, and the rumor that they might buy Top Rank and Bob Arum. Dave Feldman and BKFC would come a lot cheaper, and it would be a fourth sport, because WWE is not sport, but WWE, BKFC, boxing, bare knuckle, traditional boxing, and UFC. Now they're really getting to the point where they have it all, Muay Thai and things like that, like the one formula where they do grappling and Muay Thai and stuff like that. Muay Thai, even grappling and stuff like that, even though it's grown a lot too, those aren't, you know, that level of sport yet. What bare knuckle brings, like I said, there's a bare knuckle Hall of Fame. Bare knuckle boxing was bare knuckle before 1880, say, and it's got, actually, if you look at it, 300 years of history. I can get into it. The first bare knuckle champion in England was in the 1720s, a guy named James Figg. If you look at it, there was actually a woman's champion in the 1720s as well, named Elizabeth Wilkerson Stokes, if you want to look her up. So bare knuckle can fall back on that sport aspect where, yes, it's rough, yes, it's edgy, but it's also something you've never been able to get rid of. So it's here to stay kind of thing. So Feldman's put it in the mainstream. He's made a really nice looking product. But like I said, I don't think, no matter what or who they've gotten, and if they are talking to the UFC, I think I heard a rumor where they might do, who was it? Darren Till fighting?
Well, I just said that's what people were saying, but I don't think
okay.
that's a.
Well,
There's
let's say that's
legitimacy
what.
to it.
Let's say it was legit. Darren Till's the guy to fight. What's
Mike
his name?
Perry.
Mike Perry, who's at the top of the BKFC rung right now. Has Darren Till had 1 million pay-per-view sales? No. So that does nothing. You know what I mean? But as an asset, like I said, that if Feldman were to be offered 200 million for the product, he might ride off into the sunset. I don't know if that's the right number or not, but I present that it would be a lot cheaper than the WWE merger was, or that was actually a merger, not a purchase, or than that a Bob Arum purchase is going to be.
I doubt it would even be 200 million.
Just making up a number, yeah. But he'll ride off into the sunset, and they'll give him stock options, or he might stay on as a figurehead for a little while and take a salary and stuff like that. If he truly loves it, or he might just leave with the money because it's good money, and that's that's what those guys are in it for. So, but I think BKFC would be a nice asset to a big mega combat conglomerate. And I think BKFC has at least done the work that it makes more sense for them to look at the BKFC than it would to say gobble up, some submission grappling league, which there's not really any submission grappling leagues. There's submission grappling shows, like Abu Dhabi does their annual show. And then, they have the trials and things and places all over, but it's not a true, it's not true anything. So it's like or Muay Thai, where it's centered around Asia and it's centered around with some Dutch exceptions, it's centered around tiny athletes, which is definitely not what the American market and what that conglomerate wants. when they added the WWE, what did they add? They may not be athletes, but they are a bunch of specimens. You know, even CM Punk, when he went to compete and try an athletic endeavor, had to basically lose about 30 pounds of muscle, because he walked around at 200 to be in the ring. And, when he had to try to do what he was doing, even though it was a failure, he fought at 170 because the idea of WWE is that the guys have to be bigger than life.
It'd make more sense for them to buy BKFC than, to take on Power Slap like they did.
And that's the part where, Dana was on a run for so long that nobody questions his business acumen. And, we're seeing in the lawsuit as things come out more and more that, he was a bull in a china shop, and that, there may have been some shady things he did there with, crossing the line as far as business and stuff was concerned in order to get rid of competition, things like that. But, the idea he presents the idea, like, for example, when he criticizes judges, it's like he says, no, who won that fight? I did. Blah won that fight. It's like, yeah, Dan, that's your opinion. Guess what, Dan? You're wrong on a few things. You know what I mean? Including, for example, what was the name of the kid who's at one now, who got his face broken in the UFC and they let him go? And
Sage Northcutt.
Sage Northcutt, for example. So he's been wrong, but nobody calls him out on his shit. So now, it took a drastic mistake on his part, like Power Slap, for it to come to the media, for people to actually question him and his ideas and things.
Yeah, that has gone nowhere. All the things he said he was going to do. Wait until you see what we do. Power Slap's gone nowhere.
Yeah.
It's still sitting on Rumble. Nobody cares. All this stuff I'm going to bring in the best guys from all over the world. BS. No one cares.
Yeah. And even now, even though a lot of people still, now snicker at the word Power Slap, and it's considered egg on Dana's face, not enough people, Dana should be made fun of for that,
Yeah.
The press should call him out. But again, when Dana, could cut off someone's mic and then rant and rave in his, powerful personality kind of thing, nobody wants to take that on. But Power Slap is nothing more than an embarrassment to him. And you're right. They should have, BKFC at least, I think they've always thought of it as small time, because even though BKFC presents themselves as the fastest growing sport and stuff, I think they're going to top off, I'll give you a perfect example. And this happens to be something I know some inside information about, which I don't have a lot of BKFC inside information on. But they went to Europe. They did a show in Europe. Where'd you do it? Was it England, where there's bare knuckle stuff? No. Yeah. Was it France? No. Was it Russia, where you could probably do a big show and the macho people over there would probably drink that up? No. It was Bulgaria, which is a tiny economy, a small country, because they had a good connection over there, who I happen to know. So, they were able to say, yeah, we went to Europe, we did a Europe show and stuff like that, but measure it, measure it compared to the UFC doing, Wembley Arena, or, some of the big shows that they've done in England, or, when they've done big shows. Did they ever do a UFC Paris at one point? They got that off.
Yeah. Remember they had a.
Yeah.
Oh,
they did. They, even in Sweden, Sweden where they did shows, Sweden's a big economy for a smaller country. Probably Sweden's economy is bigger than Bulgaria's, if I'm not way off on this. Bulgaria is a country that is lower half of the European economies. They went over there because they had a connection, not because they were going to. It's a power display. When the UFC does things, it's a power display. So BKFC is saying that they're the fastest growing company, or the fastest growing fight games. Yeah, it's because they're trying to take advantage of the UFC slowdown for them to look like they're jetting upwards, but they're actually not moving that fast forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's gaining momentum either. And but I do think BKFC is more, the UFC, Zuffa trying to build up something that was kind of, you know, off-putting to a lot of people. And BKFC is kind of, I think it's off-putting to the mainstream public. Well, I don't even think the mainstream public knows about it really, but it's the kind of thing that's similar to what they have built, the
Like, yeah,
UFC. So I
like
think it makes more sense for them to take on that as a sport than goofy power slap.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The BKFC has proven itself to be a sport. I think it's a niche. People could disagree with that. That's okay. But I look at it this way. I went to a lot of the early UFCs. And the early UFCs don't have the aspect that you see now in the UFCs. And part of that, I think, is because it was a little more rugged of a sport, more blood, more, you know, machismo with the fighters, the potential for people to brawl in the hotels and things like that, like real stuff like that led to a situation where it was a lot of men showing up to see those shows. And I think BKFC has that aspect. BKFC is not a show that you're going to take your girlfriend to see.
Mm-hmm.
If you do drag your girlfriend to it, I feel like your girlfriend might say, "Oh no, I'll stay home the next time."
But it
Whereas the
makes it
UFC
look
is now a
more.
spectacle. Is now a spectacle, so you see women front row at the UFC going crazy and stuff like that. And one of the reasons for that, whether you like it or not, is that there's much less blood.
But if you package it next to the UFC, it makes sense. Power
Yeah,
slap does not make any
right.
sense.
No, that's a Dana mistake. Is 100%. That it took them this long to recognize BKFC is because Feldman has put in the miles and put in the work to at least get themselves recognized. And I'm presenting that it would be a good asset in a huge mega company that presents itself as a sport, a combat sport, total package kind of thing, that BKFC has a niche. But again, when you're talking about what the asking price for that company would be, much less than Top Rank. They might pay 5% of what they'll pay for Top Rank for that company, and Feldman would be very happy. So I don't know what those numbers are, but yeah, they can talk all they want about how big they are or are going to be. And here's the other part of it is, as an adrenaline junkie, the first time you see BKFC, you might get that rush and be like, wow, that was amazing. But just like everything else, watch 30 BKFC cards and you tell me if you still get the same rush over it. Or if not, or if you start to see them break down and say, you know, it's boxing and they have their own techniques and things like, you can grab behind the head and hit and things like that. But it becomes more rudimentary than boxing. It's not the sweet science anymore. It's more of a rugged game. And because of that, I just don't think it's as marketable.
Yeah. And also power slap. It's almost like that's something you would. That's
Forget
something.
about
No. I think it's something you would expect to see on like the same card as a pie eating contest at the fair or something. It's not. It's not a combat sport. Like
yeah, yeah,
today we're having the pie eating contest, and tomorrow we're gonna have power slap at the fair.
yeah. Or
Two guys
the
are gonna
fair,
slap each other.
the fair at night. They're going to do something edgy. They used to have like, the tough man who might call out people from the audience and stuff like that and fight drunk guys. It's lower than that.
Who can hold the stein the longest at Oktoberfest?
Yeah. Yeah. It's power slap. God bless those people that tried it and maybe got enamored with the idea. They were doing it. And then all of a sudden, it got some attention and people started saying, it's going to be on TV, you're athletes. And yeah, and so people, they got carried away with a dream, but that's what it was. Well, a dream / nightmare, you know what I mean? But that's what it was, a complete exploitation. People making money like the early UFCs when there was no money. You're talking about $1 billion company backing it, and they were still paying guys $2,000 or $1,000 for these things.
Yep.
It's grotesque. It is a sideshow. It's like next to the bearded lady and the
Right.
whatever you want to, the old freak shows of the last century, or the 2 centuries ago rather.
But you don't really hear people talking about the fact that it's going nowhere.
No, I think people are not talking about it anymore at all. And including Dana. Dana's very happy that it never comes up again, because he really, really has nothing that he can say. At first, like you mentioned, he did say, wait till you see this Russian guy that we're going to bring in. It's like, yeah, the Russian guy who, if he was a fit athlete, would be 190 pounds, but he's 4'10", of 200 pounds of blubbering fat. That's the athlete you're going to present to people, And so, yeah, he screwed up. He screwed up. And at the time that he did it and we called it, we thought, that if this played out in a way that wasn't surreal, Ari Emanuel and those people might use it like, Dana, man, you're not, the guru that you think you are. You suck. That this was actually a terrible idea. But those guys, Hunter Campbell, everybody's they're all marching to the same beat, like they've all drank the same Kool-Aid, and everybody shut up about it. Nobody brings it up. When Dana says to me, he, says in the press, so-and-so, the lawyer who said WWE and wants to have every UFC fan will be a WWE fan in the future. He's an idiot. When he said that, my retort as that lawyer would have been like, yeah, what about Power Stop, asshole? You want to play in the press? You know what I mean? That's the thing. But nobody does that to Dana. And that's the problem with this whole aspect of things. So we'll see how the lawsuit plays out. We'll see how much of a hit WWE is for this company. We saw WWE debut their WrestleMania stuff. And this is, again, the power of what they do. Last week, the headlines were Vince McMahon's all over the news. This week, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is back in the WWE. You know what? The same exact shtick he used 25 years ago when he was coming up. That's one of the things that that defines the WWE different than the other things, is that it's a nostalgia act as well. Now, you can bring up acts from the past and things like that. He came out using the exact same scripts that he used throughout his career when he was at the top of his game. The eyebrow lifts, referring to himself in the third person, the whole thing. But what is it? Hey, now he's a crossover mainstream star, so everybody's watching. And now you've forgotten about Vince. That's the effect.
Yeah. Now, before we kind of sign off, why do you think UFC has not announced a main event for UFC 300?
I think maybe they did. I mean, at the end of the day, UFC 200 was main evented by women. And UFC 300, they're more population. If they could get a third of the population in China to sit and watch the main event between the two girls, then that would be the equivalent of every single person in the United States watching the fight. And it's probably less than that, a quarter of the population. So a heavy advertising campaign in China, where two Chinese athletes are being presented as at the top of a world sport, and women and men, that differentiation. Chinese back their athletes. They're also very, if they're Chinese, they love, to see Chinese people. So the fact that Chinese girls are in the main event, they're gymnasts, they're swimmers and things like that, they're heavily backed over there. So if they could get, I'm not even exactly sure what the numbers are, but if they could get a fifth of the population over there to watch it, it would be the equivalent of every single person in the United States watching it. And again, with bank accounts in China, they may not even have to declare or pay taxes on any money coming in from over there to America or anything like that. Who knows how they're going to monetize that? But that could be some heavy monetization if they play the game at that level. That that people aren't giving that fight credit for what it could be. That could be a major fight in terms of making them money that you won't even see or count on.
So you think that's going to be the main event? Do you believe that, or you think they're going to have something else?
Well, if that's the if all of them, if they've done the projections and most of the money for this show is going to come in from China, why would you take a chunk of that money and pay John Jones or anybody else and diminish your bottom line? They're already, I'm just saying there's the potential. It is speculation on my part. I don't know. But there is the potential, especially now consider gambling money. How they monetize on gambling money is very nefarious. But like I presented to you the idea that there are guys that'll bet $10, $20 million on a fight. And I think China is a place where gambling is much more embedded in the culture. Like I said, if you could look this up, I'm not making this up. The amount of gambling that goes on in Macau, China, dwarfs what goes on in Vegas. Vegas is small change. Vegas is like Atlantic City is to Vegas what Vegas is to Macau. So if they're also on top of that, playing house to a bunch of big gamblers, and the house always wins, right? Now, what would be better than taking a so you have one Chinese fighter, the Chinese market's all going to go one way. It's not exciting to be the house. You got to put the line slanted so that you make money and maybe not that much money comes in. But now you've got a competitive world level fight between two athletes that are going to split the biggest market in gambling. So if they play house to that, and again, I don't know how, if that's going on, but I do have, a good feeling that it is, then they're going to make money hand over fist.
Do you think they might try something at the Super Bowl?
Like what?
No, I had saw where Dana White said they were going to film something. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, well, you know what they should do? They should have.
They're doing a
right
Bud
before,
Light ad for the Super Bowl. I'm just wondering if there might be something.
I'll make it right before the halftime show. They should have Sean Strickland run out onto the field naked. What can they do? That's not.
No, I mean, try to drop it there if they're gonna drop it. That'd be the best place to drop it.
Yeah, in the commercial. Yeah, maybe in the commercial, but they get all eyes on it. But here's the thing: is what and I can't say that I can think of any fight that wouldn't have a lot of the people going, I don't know those guys. Nothing short of John Jones and Ngannou, which they can't do, would be worth them putting on the Super Bowl. What are they going to, or Connor Chandler, right? And then people might still say, who's Chandler? But you just, you put it around Connor. I remember if you look back at it, when Nick Diaz fought St. Pierre. St. Pierre was the champion, right? But if you look at the actual promotional poster that the UFC put out, St. Pierre appeared this big on it. And looming behind him like this was Nick Diaz. And that's what they could do with Connor in any way, shape, or form. But we already have been told, maybe that's the big surprise. What if they did announce that Connor was going to fight at UFC 300 at the Super Bowl? Most people would be wowed by that, and that would be a move. You don't see that happening yet. You'd have heard that Connor's training by now or something.
Well, he has released some training footage here and there.
Yeah, like I said, That's okay. That's okay. Everybody can, I can release TikTok stuff too.
No, I'm saying maybe Dana's trying to throw people off the trail.
Yeah,
This is conspiracy we're talking here.
That would be a move that would impress. That would be impressive if they actually said, yeah, you know what, UFC 300, it is McGregor, it is Chandler. We announced it at the Super Bowl in a commercial there, where everybody's sitting there watching, waiting for the Bud Light puppies, or whatever the commercials are every year. That the Clydesdales or whatever stupid commercials are repetitive. And among them, every once in a while, there's something new, like, oh my, there's a crypto coin commercial this year, or whatever the news is. If the UFC secretly dropped that bomb at the Super Bowl, that would be an impressive move where they would cross over and get a lot of attention. But short of McGregor or Jones and Ngannou, because I don't think Jones alone, Jones Stipe, they could have announced that before, without paying, a few $1 million a second for the commercial. So I don't know. I don't know what they could do there. But I think, like I said, I think people should understand that with the Fertitas and Dana, this was a money making machine. But with Endeavor, it was taken to the next level where it's really the only thing they care about. And I think you're misunderstanding the capabilities of the Chinese market and what you could do over there. Keep in mind, have we ever really seen a Chinese versus a Chinese fight? I know they did like a tough in China, and they've done some, uh, some events and things like that there. But a UFC title fight with a Chinese athlete versus a Chinese athlete, this is history. And who would care more about that? We don't care, right? The average fan sitting in the couch, waiting for Conor, waiting for John Jones, they don't care. But you have 1.5 billion people over there that could potentially care about this, especially if they market it correctly. And so I think the monetization is already in place. That's their moneymaker there.
I think that's a great thing to end on, because it makes a lot of sense, and you're kind of the only person talking about that.
Yeah, I grant it's a little bit of speculation, but just look at it, look at their behavior. They don't seem in a rush to. There's nobody on the horizon. What could they do? Adesanya Duplessis? That's a UFC fight. It's a good UFC fight. It's a good main event. But you might get people say, it's not a good main event for 300. Duplessis Adesanya? Adesanya comes back? Or Strickland rematch? Or something like that? Those are fights. Those are not crossover stuff that people are expecting. So I think what you're not recognizing with the Chinese fight is that they've crossed over, but in a different market. They're going to get attention over there.
Yeah, I think what you're saying. If they don't make an announcement like at the Super Bowl, something that's a wow, that this might be the main event, you might be right, because it makes sense. Everything you're saying makes sense.
Yeah, they've announced there's the main event already, sort of.
Well, it's at the top of the card.
Yeah,
it's over Gaethje Holloway, which in the hardcore wars and America probably is a bigger fight.
Oh yeah, as far as if Gaethje and Holloway deliver a masterpiece, you'll see some people tune out for that title fight, especially if it becomes a little bit of a methodical fight after round two, and it's kind of slower paced, and they're not shattering the eye sockets. You know what I mean? Then, yeah, you might even see some of the American audience tune out. They don't care.
Well, I mean, that's great stuff, Miguel. And as always, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about the rescue and kind of new stuff you're doing.
Yeah, life goes on. Like I was watching today, it's like uh, I want to call out Texas specifically. There's a few states in the country that consistently euthanize dogs, but Texas is a holocaust for dogs. And I know it's offensive maybe to use that term, but There are literally hundreds of dogs being euthanized every week in that state. And it's just because they have bad laws and people don't care. There's no education. Dogs run loose, not spaying, not forced spaying. The shelters aren't supervised well. There's not enough of them. There's some good people there trying, but they're facing uh, just a wall of indifference, and people don't care. People think, okay, it's a dog. Who cares? You know, eh, you know, it's not that far of a cry. If you can watch an animal die that doesn't want to die, then what are you capable of with a human being? Where if you're trying to change the world, that might actually be a good place to start, because you've got dogs that really literally don't deserve what their fate is, and they're dying by the hundreds. And they get thrown out, and it's a situation where if the information I've gotten is not incorrect, it's like they actually have figured out ways to monetize the amount of dogs so they get money for every dog that they euthanize, and they take others in and things like that. It's kind of crazy. There's no real want to take out dogs, and it starts with people adopting and not buying a puppy mill dog. It starts with making the puppy mill people heavily supervised and under legal scrutiny, because they run amok, and the conditions that those dogs are bred under are also probably quite disgusting in many cases. So it's just a horrible underbelly that really shows a dark side of humanity, our capability of allowing that and just being indifferent. So I can't be indifferent. I just and I call out Texas. I'm not there doing anything there, but I try to do every day and every week here in Costa Rica the same. And here we're in a situation where they do have animal cruelty laws, and the people in general are, in general, there are a lot of strays, and people sort of take care of them. There's not as much animal cruelty as you see in the States, and that should be embarrassing to the States as well. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and for anybody that wants to support the cause, we have a GoFundMe that we always put in the show notes of these MMA Conspiracy Hours that supports the Miguel's dog rescue he works at, and Wet Nose Project.
Yeah, Ashley's Wet Nose Project.
It's always there, and if you want to contribute something, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, on Sunday we're going to go out to a local city here in Naranjo, which is near where I'm living now, and feed strays. We got a beat on where there's a location where there's a bunch of strays that are kind of getting by in a field kind of thing, and we're going to go out and see what's going on there, and if any of them need medical attention that's sort of immediate, we'll probably bring them back with us. Ashley was able to get into a little space in that's the thing, is there's no space in the shelter, so we've got the dogs that we keep, and we can feed strays and things like that, but we can't add new dogs or take new dogs in unless people adopt and take dogs out. So with a little space, we'll see what we can get, and we're looking for a vet. It's always something. So
yeah. Well, as everybody everybody tunes in this week, greatly appreciate it. Subscribe, like the videos and Miguel, as always, appreciate your insight. I thought this was great stuff today, and
we didn't even get into Vince McMahon's depraved world.
Right, we did that last episode, so I decided to break off a little. We'll hear more, I'm sure, and there'll be more to chew on with that, as more is going to come out, I'm sure. Yeah. And everybody watch the episode, we appreciate it, and until next time, take care.
Hi, it's Claudia Correa, and I just want to sit down and thank you all for watching the MMA Conspiracy Hour with Todd Atkins and Miguel Iterate. Miguel has been the matchmaker of over 200 shows across the world. Miguel has worked with Hook and Shot, Euphoria, Bodog Fight, and ADCC. You can also find Miguel on his YouTube channel at MMA Collector 74. And don't forget to follow me at It's Claudia Correa.